Hey, this is Pavel Bains. I'm CEO of Bluzelle. I'm happy to be at REIMAGINE.
Hello and welcome to REIMAGINE 2021. This is our 9th conference, Game of Chains, Battle for the Throne. That's a topic and theme of this month. We do a monthly series of events bringing you nothing but the best projects, bright minds, and leaders in the space. We've been fortunate enough to invite many talented individuals and teams to come speak with us, providing updates, insights, and all the above. That's happening in crypto. I'll be your host today, Adam, from the MouseBelt team, where we focus on early stage investments through our accelerator, or providing development support to a number of growing projects, as well as education within our MouseBelt University program. Our main objective and goals are simple. It's increasing adoption, use cases, and real-world applications. We seek to educate our audience on blockchain by helping them understand crypto's real impact. Again, thank you for joining us at the moment. We have an exciting interview today, an interesting interview. One of my first meetups, early 2018, when I got into the space. This was one of the first meetups I attended here in San Francisco. They were strong then. They're still going strong, and we're happy to have him here. Pavel Bains, how you doing, man? Co-founder and CEO of Bluzelle. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, Adam. It's funny that you brought that event up. I totally remember it clearly when we went there just for Token Fest. It was great.
Yeah, exactly. Time flies. Feels like a million years ago. You guys have been going, super strong. You're all over YouTube as well. Anybody that's tuning in, you can catch Pavel here. Just Google Bluzelle. He has a few interviews talking about kind of his past, what the project is. I'm going to do something a little bit different this time around. I will get an intro, Pavel, on like what your quick journey into blockchain, because everybody has a cool, rabbit hole story of how they stumbled into it. We would love to hear that. And then two, kind of how that led you to Bluzelle. And then, I'll kick it off from there.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So I came from the video game space, digital media, did stuff with like Microsoft, Electronic Arts, Disney, Warner Brothers, like name it. Got kind of tired of that. I was taking a break, and then one of my friends brought up Bitcoin, just like, everybody else does, and said, okay, what's this all about? Started reading it, and I was like, whoa, just totally fascinated because it's combined like everything. It was cyberpunk, it was science, it was mathematics, it was finance, it was political science. It was like, oh, all this cool stuff wrapped up into one product. So started going down that rabbit hole. With that, found my co-founder, Neeraj, and we were just saying, let's just do stuff in blockchain, dev work, whatever, and just get going. Then from that, we ended up moving to Singapore because we thought, oh, if this stuff takes off, we'll probably be in Asia, fintech, finance capital, and came out here. And then Bluzelle morphed into what it is now of storage, the decentralized storage, because we were doing some projects for banks on the blockchain. And we realized that if this stuff takes off, the first layer is decentralized, but that could authenticate transactions. But if you're storing files, customer information, if that's not decentralized, well, then everything is broken. And that's kind of how Bluzelle morphed into what it is now.
And
decentralized storage.
Yeah, and I remember kind of the pivots, and I'm glad you brought that up. How critical were those pivots? Like, we have startups, we have entrepreneurs, we have founders tuning in, right, to this conference. And I'm sure at some point, either you stick with your gut and like you believe in what you're going to do, or, you maybe take a little risk to kind of pivot, adjust. Maybe you didn't plan for it. And how did you navigate kind of going from, point A to where Bluzelle is now? And were you confident, in these changes of kind of what you guys were developing and building?
It's weird because I came from the traditional startup space, and crypto startup space is actually different. And in that, I say, in the typical startup space, you'll pivot fast, find it. And we're applying that methodology to do it. But then what I realize now, looking back, in crypto, what we realize that you have to let the market catch up. So if you actually look at it, I think in crypto, you shouldn't pivot as much, because the stuff that we were actually doing then and said, oh, this stuff's not working, there's not enough consumers, we got to go enterprise. And then from there, let's go decentralized. But if you actually if you think about the guys who stuck with just saying, the market's young, we have to wait it out and just it out. Eventually, it catches up. Like I remember Kraken at a point was almost bankrupt in 2016. 2015, 2016. I talked to people who knew them indirectly. They're like, yeah, we don't know if they're going to make it. But once the market caught up, it did all right. A great example is DEXs. 2017, everybody's excited about DEXs. 2018, there's no volume, nobody's using it. But the Kybers and all those guys who stuck with it and said, we just gotta survive long enough that the market catches up. DEXs took off. So in that thinking, there was a while, like maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when we're like, there's not enough applications being built here. Maybe we need to move away from storage. Maybe storage isn't it. Maybe we should pivot. But we ended up just sticking it through, saying maybe everything is just 2 to 3 years behind of what we thought. And eventually Web3 will catch up, storage will be needed, and then we should be at the right, as long as you're around at the right time, then that works. So I'm almost saying the opposite of typical value startups, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
In this case, you almost have to wait it out. It's weird.
No, you're totally right. I think you have to weather, if you can, right? You got to weather the storm, because you're right. We do move quickly. If you have good foresight and kind of understand what's going on, it might take a little bit of time. It might even take a little bit of longer time. Obviously, you got to run lean. And obviously stay on top of the market in terms of what everybody else is doing and kind of what makes sense. And hindsight right now is 2020, but when you see everything now, you're right. We did see it a few years ago, and it was so advanced or kind of like interesting, new. God, at that time, you're right. It wasn't like the time because everything else was being built, infrastructure, blockchains, consensus, mechanisms, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, a bunch of forks of Bitcoin, which, isn't always the right solution. So where do you fall in terms of like decentralization versus centralization to the degree? Some people want full decentralization. Some understand like you're going to be in the middle, and some, are not, maybe don't believe in decentralization as much. You bring up a good point. You're only as decentralized as kind of like your most centralized point, I guess, of failure, or where you're at in the stack. Where do you fall in terms of like, does everything need to be decentralized? Do you think it's good for some verticals or industries?
Some verticals definitely can be centralized and okay. Like let's say you're an NFT and you're a walled garden. IP is what matters. So you're using the blockchain to authenticate property ownership, but it doesn't have to be in an open marketplace where anybody can come. Maybe a walled garden works. I think also right now, I think eventually everything will gravitate to being fully decentralized. Right now, usability and consumer interaction matters most. And then as they get educated and like I said, the market catches up, things will just start becoming less centralized and move towards decentralized. So I think it's just part of the process. Maybe 2 years ago, I would have thought different, that no, everything's got to be decentralized from the start. But now what we're seeing is just get the people in, get them comfortable with the product. Friends of mine who got into crypto in the past year, let's say from September 2020. Hey, where should I buy it? Where should I keep it secure? I'm like, they're relatively small amounts. So I'm not telling them go get a ledger and do this. I'm like, if it's in Canada or the US, Coinbase, these exchanges are good. They're not going anywhere wrong. Keep it on there, save yourself the headache. But as they're getting educated more along and getting more into it, they're like, hey, maybe I'll buy more. Maybe a MetaMask or a ledger wallet and keeping custody myself is cool. And I do want that. So I think centralization is good as long as we're bringing people in and then let them kind of find out the options and they'll move towards that path. You're mute now.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
We were, I was just doing an interview and we were just talking about that for this conference in terms of like, getting it going, building some momentum, getting people in, right? And then having some optionality in terms of maybe a hybrid approach, custodial, non-custodial, or however you want, give them the option, once they're in, once they know how to use kind of the infrastructure of crypto. So let's talk about Bluezelle a little bit. Like, give us a backdrop of what you guys are working on. What have you been working on? And like, why is it important that Bluezelle, has targeted this specific kind of area within blockchain, data storage?
Yeah, it was my CTO. He's really passionate about it, saw it. And like I said, going back to your thing, that infrastructure is going to be needed. If you have successful apps, they need better infrastructure to support. As those apps grow, they need better infrastructure. And so once again, we saw that decentralized storage is going to definitely be needed, especially around data. Like we're seeing how our data is used, manipulated, mined, all that stuff, and ownership and how it should be protected should be there. And so then what's interesting for us is over the past couple months is kind of grown past the database because of stuff that was going on in the market, is that you can start as a database and do data storage, but then because how we built with Cosmos and other things, the modules that you can build on top actually allowed us to go more breadth. So instead of just being a database, we can actually do full decentralized storage. So we can actually do files and that are specific that can manage the database as well. So we definitely see as, DEXs eventually took off, then decentralized storage infrastructure is all going to take off because these apps are going to go and then be like, we need better backends for all these things, and we'll be there. Otherwise, they're running the risk of, let's say if you build an application and you have it on all your data and your files are stored on AWS or Google Cloud, and then all of a sudden, there's a network failure and something goes down, now your app's not accessible. Or you're doing good things and I don't know, let's just say one of the AWS MongoDB guys just has it in for crypto or whatever and says, you know what, all crypto products, let's just stop giving access to them because we think they're doing this and that. All of a sudden, all your application backend is gone. On a decentralized network where it's stored, it's like, no, you can't take this stuff down because it's all decentralized and the network's managing it.
Can you talk a little bit about the infrastructure? How's Bluzelle built? Like the inner workings of it, the stack?
Yeah, without going, I'm not a tech person myself, but and maybe that's actually better. Going out into the big aspect of it, just so think about it as you got Ethereum, you got Bitcoin. Every transaction is validated by the network, all the nodes. Who owns it, all that stuff gets processed. So Bluzelle works the same way. The blockchain we're using is Cosmos Tendermint, so we have our own Bluzelle network there. All our nodes, instead of just processing the transaction, they're basically storage devices. So Adam, you join up as a node. Part of the thing is you got to provide X space storage onto it in case it's used. So you're providing the storage and at the same time processing the transaction. So I have an application, I store some data, all the nodes come together and saying, yeah, this is Pavel's application. He's the rightful owner. This data is from that application. And boom, you guys all come to consensus and it updates the database for my application on that. So it stores and updates and authenticates that all the right people made the thing. So if a third party comes in and tries to change it, they're like, wait, these private keys don't match. None of this we don't have consensus here. We're not going to change this information. So and then what you get in turn, if you're the storage provider, is you process it. You provide storage space and you made sure it was secure, right, through the Cosmos Tendermint. And for that, you earn part of the network fees.
You touched on a couple things here, Ethereum, a little bit, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Cosmos. One of the themes, we've done What the Fi is DeFi, we've done NFTs, we've tried to highlight, right, kind of what's going on in the market, highlight just trends that are happening, highlight various teams and projects that are focusing on certain areas of crypto and blockchain. And this one is Game of Chains, Battle for the Throne. And really the theme is around like layer ones and base layers, layer ones, layer twos. What made you choose, when people are trying to understand what a blockchain is, they're trying to figure out what is blockchain, what's doing this, what's doing that, what's the purpose of the blockchain. What was your path to determine Cosmos was the best option, as opposed to X, Y, and Z out there? Was it timing, at that time? And then maybe, moving forward, has everybody else caught up, or or whatnot? Because Cosmos has been around a long time, so has some of these others. But I would love to get your perspective on your decision to choose, what platform to build on.
Yeah, so what it was, so we're building our own consensus engine first. And, we spent a lot of time, our team doing it. But it's like every time we took 3 steps forward, we took 1 back. Like, oh, it's almost done. And then something would break. And it just kept going. And eventually we had to just say, we spent a lot of resource on this. Enough is enough. We can't keep doing this for the next year. And fortunately, at that time, Tendermint had just come out. And that was around the end of 2019 and had been tested well. And, our research team, CTO, went through it, and they're like, okay, it's got the speed that we want. It's going to be interoperable so that other chains come in there and join, Cosmos Tendermint is IBC, inter-blockchain protocol, communication protocol. So if people connect to that, that means we're automatically connected to all of them. So that was a big thing. So the speed of it, the interoperability, and then also it's a modular approach that if we want to add new things to support, like oracles or file storage, or let's say even a DEX or an automated market maker later, we can actually easily do that. So it's just adding modules to our piece. So it gave us that flexibility. So I would say, to summarize, it was a speed, it was interoperable and flexible. It's on mute again.
Sorry about that. And those are critical aspects, right? Like, I think obviously speed and flexible, reliable. I've heard that story too of developing and trying to build their own blockchains and their own consensus, mechanism, and just it's tough. It's hard to do. Resources, human capital, financial capital, like can really be. Are you keeping an eye on anything now that you like since other chains have come out?
Yeah, personally, I mean. I'm liking Solana, just the products on there.
Yeah.
A good example is, so I've got a 13-year-old kid, and she started yield farming in the past couple of months, just learning, right? Just play around. So I got her using Solana and Radium, just because it was easier. Because I think if I did it on the Ethereum-based ones, it might have been just too complicated and waiting the transaction flow. And if I want her to learn and just understand, go in there, click away. And this kid plays Fortnite and Minecraft. She's not going to sit there and wait for Ethereum transactions and things like that. So I think on that usability factor, it was really good for her to understand. So now that she's learning more, she might go, well, I like these products on Ethereum better. And maybe she'll be more warm to like, hey, the IP is coming out. Eventually it'll be fixed, or maybe she'll do it on Polygon. But for her, the usability factor was really nice. So that, you have to, as much as, we all love Ethereum and all of that, and still Ethereum's got the best developers everywhere, you can't ignore that user factor of what my kid does, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, totally. It makes total sense. And how do they, when you plug in Bluzelle, a user wants to leverage the platform, like, how do you guarantee that your storage is there? Like, how does one, like, it's going to be there down the road, right? I think these are some of the concerns in storage. Like, we trust AWS and for all the right reasons. But how can one trust this decentralized aspect of these various nodes providing storage, and my information is going to be there, like, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road?
Yeah, it's I mean, going back to what we were talking about, pivots and all those things, and understanding of linear timelines. I think all of us you were there in 2018. I think we overestimated where we were in the world's scope. Like, we all thought that everything's gonna be in blockchain in 3 years, enterprises are coming, and we were just so off the mark there. So, I'll give a good example. I was reading this thing, and they said 10 years ago, and I was in Silicon Valley then, is that they said people were concerned at a point that all the startups coming up in the infrastructure backend side were only selling to startups. So it's like, oh, we're only selling to other startups like us. Is that a real market? But what you understood was that was needed to battle test the products so that the bigger companies could come. Like these products like Cloudflare, Heroku, they were really just startups or early adopters and doing it. And you couldn't go to, everybody talks in blockchain is like, when is enterprise, when commercial use, mainstream. Well, that didn't work in the startup world of tech. So it's not going to do it here. So I think what we got to do is go through that battle testing on smaller projects, showing it. I mean, a good example is Matic Polygon. I was talking to Sandeep maybe like 8 months, almost a year ago. And they were frustrated, like, why isn't everybody using us as a layer 2? It's clear that you need it in doing that. And he came to the realization that Ethereum is battle tested at 4 years deep as of last year, and saying they have that, people trust it, and they'll deal with the slowness. So we just have to have more projects going, even small ones, showing that we're battle tested and ready. And then you have the wave come in. So going back to, this is probably a long way about saying, but I just think in our space, we have to just come realistic that these are still mass experimental, whether a person trusts AWS or a developer, even though Ethereum is still relatively new in the big scheme of things, it's still more battle tested than Polygon Matic.
Yeah.
And then it needed that time to do it. So we're kind of in that same space now where we're moving to more to utility, doing more things. We're going to have developers coming on and hopefully become more battle tested over the next 6 months. And then you get that inflection point.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of our discussions here with Reimagine, everybody tuning in, right? That's kind of the point of these discussions really is about education, adoption, understanding what Bluzelle is doing, understand what you've been doing for, people think that blockchain kind of just came out like in the last few years, but ultimately it's distributed systems, cryptography, this has been around for decades, right? And so it's just kind of maybe come full steam with other technologies kind of catching up and making this now more available to use with the advancements of just innovation in general. But talking about that Matic thing, like, yeah, I think it's still the argument with Ethereum, like you just said. I remember I've known Matic. Yeah, they're one of our partners for the last few years, and I remember when they came out too. That confidence, like Ethereum, everybody understands it. But I would say like the tides are turning. Matic Polygon has obviously blown up recently. People are kind of understanding, kind of what they've been working on for quite some time. So regarding like AWS and some of these bigger players, are you concerned, or is any do you think like they could change their business models into like a decentralized aspect? Can it go from centralization to wiping out kind of the new Web3 startup world, or do you think they're going to stick to what they've been doing and kind of let the Bluzelles of the world take over in this new space?
I mean, history shows us that everybody thinks that just because they have money and this and that, it's really hard to change big organizations. Yeah. They're so complex. It's not like they can be like, they make a 5-year roadmap or a plan, right? And you have all these divisions are all aligned. If Jeff Bezos says, okay, tomorrow I want to go full decentralization, he can't be like, okay, stop everything. It's like you got all these layers that everybody has to get in line. You have to sell it into every single group.
Yeah.
That takes time. Like if you talk to, we all have friends who work in corporations, right? And you go ask them, like, why aren't you guys doing this? It seems so much faster. And they're like, yeah, we try. You know how hard it is to sell it in and do that? Like, I mean, I'll give you the best example. Forget about AWS. Cloud computing in late 2000s, like 6, 7, 8, it was obvious. Let's just use the cloud to store everything.
Yep.
You know how long it took for enterprises to start actually saying we want to move from in-house premise to the data centers to cloud? Like it's still going on. Like, and it seemed just such a no-brainer. And why did it do it for a big company to do that? Because they had to say like, well, I don't know. We got to test it. We got to do it. There's people's vested interest of protecting their job because if it goes to cloud, am I going to be gone? So if you go decentralization, you're going to have internally all these people fighting against it. It's not a matter of just like a startup where I can be like, or my CTO be like, hey, we got to turn on a dime now because things are bad, or we got to do this. Yeah, sure. Okay. You're not going to get that. So realistically, if history shows is that by the time they start catching up or understand it, they might just say, let's just partner with those or invest in them or just buy them. Right.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe the acquisition, because you're right. cloud during that period of time. People were like, I'm not taking my servers off off my property, taking them out of,
Yeah.
they're like, that's crazy. And now, yeah, everybody's pretty much migrated over.
I mean, I'll give another example of it because it peeves me off. In 2016, so Microsoft realized that they were behind in mobile and they should have been doing it. They invested into Outlook. They spent all this money and they couldn't catch up because it wasn't in their DNA. You know, they were late. Then I remember in 2015, 2016, they went and bought all my favorite mobile apps and rolled them into Outlook now. So it was, one was called Sunrise. It was a Google Calendar. They had basically bought it. I know it was Sunrise, but it was a Sunrise calendar. It was a beautiful product. They bought the whole thing. Then was it Wunderlist? It was one of the to-do apps that they went and said, the one I was using separately, they bought it. Every single one. There was a mail, mobile mail, iOS mail application, email application. They bought that. That basically turned into the new Outlook. So they realized that it wasn't in their DNA. So it's not so easy. I guess that's my long way of saying it.
No, totally. You're right. I didn't even think of that. Like either they try to make a move or they acquire or, try to build it internally. But either way, those are tough decisions at the point where, teams like yourself have already been doing it and moving quickly, nimble, flexible, and, understand the lay of the land. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this, I kind of want to touch on some of the applications, right? We've kind of just chatted about the stack, the infrastructure of Bluzelle, what you guys are doing. And some people are probably like, all right, well, how does this impact me, right? Or give me some examples of how people are using Bluzelle. And I think those are fair questions. You think of protocols and platforms and networks, and at some point, users are not going to know it's on blockchain. That's kind of what we all kind of envision, on the back end blockchain, but you don't really know what's going on. The UI UX is you're used to that already from what we've been using. And so before I get into some of the partnerships that you have over the last few months, can you talk about what Bluzelle actually offers? Because I know you're like we just talked about data storage, but you're also you're also an Oracle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about some of the things. Talk about some of the things that the solutions, the products, the services that you offer. And before I go into the partnerships, I think you have like a few buckets of like what you guys provide.
Yeah. So, I mean, the big thing in this space is compared to a few years ago, is that you're always looking for that killer use case, something that people can wrap their heads around and be like, I'm going to use this for that. And I think over the past year, the two best ones that have gone up that actually apply to us are DeFi and NFT. So a good way to show about NFTs is NFT storage. So right now, so that's how example what our file storage solution does. And we're going to be rolling this out very quickly. And exciting stuff. So Adam, you buy an NFT. I sell it to you. You got it. It's proven that, hey, this is the authentic NFT by, I don't know, whatever artist, right? Adam is the new owner. We know who the IP owner is, and we know who the owner of this art piece is. Great, blockchain does that. But that JPEG or video file of it, that's sitting on AWS. AWS all of a sudden, let's say, start censoring things. They don't like that artist or what they represent, or whatever reason, take it down. Now you lost your NFT, right? Because you're not storing it in your home. It's actually people forget that NFT is sitting on a server somewhere on a data center. So what we said is like, we modified our product and you know what? Take your NFT, store it on Bluzelle. Now it's stored on all our thousands of nodes out there, replicate it. If one node goes down, doesn't matter, they're all up. Nobody can come change it because you're the authentic owner, right? It'll always stay up, it'll always be there. So now you've got, so the blockchain, whichever is built it on, that NFT, they authenticate you're the owner, but now where it's stored or actually sits, you can have assurance that, hey, I'll always have access to it. That's probably the best use case.
Yeah, no, that's great. And what you're telling me is that does it matter where the NFT was minted or created or developed from? I don't know, Polygon or Tezos or Ethereum. Does that matter?
Well, what will matter is the platform that does it, that's our customer. So they would basically say, hey, offer to you, Adam, that hey, you got the NFT from us. It was minted here. You can store it on Bluezelle, or we'll store it in a decentralized manner for you. Click here, and boom, it's there. They might not. Our theory is that you might not even know Bluezelle was behind it.
Yeah.
So our customer would be the platform. You wouldn't be our customer; it'd be the platform.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. And I'm assuming, well, I guess we'll kind of go down some of these partnerships as of recent. So I guess we'll just start with the most recent one, like Jenshiro integrates you guys as a price feed data provider.
Yeah. So now that goes into our Oracle side.
Yeah.
The reason we can do these oracles is because we have a database, a decentralized database at the heart. So what that means is all our validators who are also providing storage, we're saying, go get these price feeds from the XYZ places. It comes in. You guys have basically all the validators go through a special 5-step algorithm process of saying this is the right one. Boom, they make it available, and now that product can grab it. Now, what makes us unique is because we have decentralized storage or decentralized data storage. So right now, oracles, they'll get prices at that moment, and sometimes even products like Chainlink will take a long time to sync up and saying, hey, this price was valid from like an hour ago. We can do it much faster, like minutes. And also, those guys keep real-time the price of what it is at that time. Because we have a database behind it, we can actually do a history of all the prices for like whatever amount of time. Now, without getting too technical, what that means is if there's certain products that are doing flash loans and they're getting attacked on, we can basically, because we have a history of prices that's stored in a decentralized way and we have that database, we can run analytics and algorithms that basically, if a platform is getting under a flash loan attack, something will signify it because our Oracle or decentralized database will catch it early and saying, hey, something's wrong here. You might want to shut it down. So that's really the big benefit for that use case, is that you're getting decentralized data storage, decentralized price oracles, and you can basically get advanced security warnings. Wow. Now to add to that, when we talk to platforms, what a lot of them have said is that, you know what, we're not going to rely on just one oracle because that's too risky. We're going to want like 3 or 4. And because we provide a certain unique offering that's different from the others, makes them feel better. Like, okay, we're covering all our bases.
Yeah, it's like another layer, or another feature that one doesn't have, and now they're kind of diversifying. Not only their partners, but yeah, they're critical, I don't know, inputs, right, or external inputs, and partners like yourself to provide a few extra layers. That's great.
Yeah, easiest way to be like they're hedging the risk,
which
is a smart thing to do if you're a DeFi protocol.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great feedback. And so what kind of marketing do you guys do to, like, everybody knows the Chainlinks of the world and a few others, right? So how do you guys market yourselves? You guys have been around a long time. Do you guys have like a big marketing plan? Is this just kind of performance and execution to drive, inbound clients to leverage you guys? How do you guys educate or work with the ecosystem to use Bluezelle?
Like right now, a lot of the marketing side is done on token, consumers who are interested in the product, supporting community. On the biz dev side, it's really what we found now is just showing demonstratable products or use cases that are easy, right? So like right now, our file storage, our data storage is in mainnet, but our new cool stuff that's going to happen in the next month, the upgrade is file storage, and the oracles will be on mainnet. And we've got a couple partners who are already using it, testing it, so they're going to go to mainnet. And then once that's there, we can go back to all the companies we've talked to and saying, here it is, it's on mainnet. Here's how it is to integrate. Here's how quick it is. Boom, boom, boom. And we should be able to sign them all up. So everybody's really interested. They're just waiting like, hey, can I use this right now? And that's where we've gotten
to. No, that's cool. And so I want to go a couple down some of these others, which I'm not familiar with this next one. Wasabi. Looks like that's another partnership to reinforce data reliability, accessibility, and accuracy. What kind of partnership is this?
It'd be the same one. Like, it's all around the Oracle. Yeah. So what they like is that, hey, it's fully decentralized. We get faster price feeds, and the whole thing about security warnings, flash loan attacks, be able to leverage that.
Awesome, awesome. And Shield Finance, same thing.
Yeah, so they're doing in the insurance side. There's certain things that they need insight into of price feeds, and once again, it's really hedge their bet and have a different type of Oracle solution, a different value prop that comes to them.
What kind of work goes into these different partnerships at a high level? Do you got to do a lot of customization? Do both teams participate? Tailor solutions to fit both tech stacks, et cetera.
It would, I think the early ones they do, because we've got to understand what are the price feeds, what are the common things. After you do a couple, you figure out the common things that they all require. And so then I think we're at that stage now where integrate them in, show how it is. So then all the other companies that we go to, we're like, hey, you just got to go with this, 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 this. And like, oh, you guys have already covered all the bases because we did it with the first 3 or 4. Like, for example, the stuff that we're doing with, you'll probably bring it up, Mintable on the NFT side. I mean, this was stuff that we were talking to them about. We said, we can do this. They said, well, can you do this? And we were able to actually work out the ideal solution for them, which we think can affect the entire industry. And that's why we're able to do Bluezelle 2.0 and add file storage, because that work that we went through, those months of them, we were able to like check off, hey, this is what's needed and we can do this. What are the requirements? We're like, okay, we can run with this now. So it's always the first couple, but I think we've got really good product use cases that we'll be able to roll out. And I see that the snowball effect will happen, that they'll all be signing up very quickly because a lot of the homework, legwork has been done.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you guys have some product market fit, like definitely, and it seems like you've had that for every step of the way as best as you could. Do you guys have a token?
Yes, we do.
And
the token is BLV.
Yeah, and how do what's the tokenomics? How does it work for Bluezelle?
Yeah, so right now it's hey, you want to store some data on it, you got to pay in Bluezelle, right? Later on, you could probably do with other ones because of interoperability and different chains. That's a side note. If you want to provide storage on the network and earn fees, well, then you have to stake Bluezelle on there because we got to make sure you're a proper validator, and then that's how you earn. And then the other things that people are doing right now is just staking through our delegator network because we're using Cosmos, so users can do that. We're also working with other pools to provide some liquidity pools that they can use BLV and earn somebody else's tokens. And then, like I said, we've got some developers teams also trying to explore what DeFi would look on a Cosmos network over Bluezelle and those type of opportunities.
You kind of just mentioned like liquidity pools with Bluezelle tokens. That's kind of interesting. Like, how does that work? You provide liquidity Bluezelle tokens and earn like on another platform in the DeFi space?
Yeah, it was just something that customers were asking, saying that, hey, we want to use DEXs, we want to use these other products, so we need some liquidity on there so we can create some. Basically, we're taking obviously everybody incentivizes their first staking rewards. So we're basically taking our budget for those staking rewards, saying, well, if users provide liquidity on Uniswap or something, then hey, it's almost like staking without staking on our platform, and we'll just reward you in those. So it's not like we're creating more inflation. We're just saying we're just using the same bucket. We're just doing them in different ways now.
Elsewhere, yeah, no, I think that's good. Good utility, good value, right? Like you just said, you're kind of just listening. Like, how important is the Bluezelle community? Like, how important is it to engage your community, the Bluezelle developer community, right? With content material, like I found some of this information, the blog post, like we talked about earlier, like it's very Ethereum has a strong community, which is why people use it. What have you noticed? And you just told me you kind of listened to some feedback. How important is that to you guys to listen to your crew?
100%. It's like, I'll give a good example, and I laugh about this. So I was looking at some post the other day, and it was I was showing to my wife, and maybe because we're all just crypto nerds, we just think differently. So it was The Rock. We all know The Rock, right? And talking about his energy drink, and he was saying, "Hey, thanks to everybody out there for making, Zoa Energy the #1 thing on the market. We did this. It was a hard week," and he just basically. He's shilling without shilling, which is okay, but he's just thanking everybody. And we said, at the end of the day, all he's saying is, thanks everybody for making me super rich this week.
Yeah.
And he's thanking his community and his supporters. And I was like, and I sit there and I was like, but I didn't get anything out of that by doing that. You're not a public company. And people like, let's just say you have Apple shares. No one's out there doing like memes or creating education to get Apple, because you don't really get anything out of it, like the shareholders don't. I was like, if Zoa was at the or the Rock was, this thing was tokenized, and he's like, hey, we're all in this together. This is the cool thing about crypto, is like, everybody who's using the product is incentivized to use the product and see it grow and tell everybody about it, because then we all grow together. And come on, at the end of the day, they financially get better. So, you know, the Rock thinking is community is complete bullshit. Yeah. And it's really, I was like, at what point do people recognize like, hey, Rock, I mean this, I create an Instagram post and I tag myself in it. But at what point do they realize that I spent the money, I did all the, but I really didn't get anything out of this? He did. So I wonder if there's going to be a crossing of the chasm where all products will start understanding that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know that's one thing. That's one thing with crypto in general, and it's been like that. And you mentioned it earlier, like all of the aspects of economics, psychology, obviously gamification, and like, you know, working with the community to have them contribute, right? And everybody, not everybody, but you get rewarded for it in some respect. And I think everybody has done a good job, you know, in this space to try their best to do that.
Well, I'll give a good example is, I mean, the artist The Weeknd. I listened to him 10 years ago when he was underground. Nobody even knew what he looked like.
Wow.
And that's a whole thing that people said. People were supporting it, buying his mixtape. People were going to like these dark shows, pop-ups, and supporting. And then you feel a sense of pride with any artist that, wow, I just saw this guy go from here to here and get bigger and bigger. And you want to feel proud about it. But what if at that initial stage that he's like, you see this guy coming up and he's like, I'm going to tokenize my entire future.
Yeah.
And put it on a smart contract. So as we grow and we do it, all my early supporters through smart contracts are getting even just a small piece of his revenue throughout. Like a guy like that who built himself up, he might have just like saying, yeah, now I have more control over my music, can do more stuff, and my fan base is all the way supported. Like that is massive, right? And like I said, I think people are going to catch on to like, you know, that good example of all these celebrities launching these ventures and thanking their community and supporters. I think as inequality goes more and more, people are going to catch on to the gig and be like, fuck this, right?
And you kind of answered
all this work for this guy.
And you kind of answered my question, or I was going to ask you, but you kind of went to it anyways. Like, so are you, we just had this NFT event. Are you a believer in NFTs in some respect?
It's funny. Somebody just asked me that, like, they're like, oh, now you're into NFTs. I will say, like,
and I heard you talk about the residual, or like, you know, residual payments or in perpetuity, right? Like artists can now earn a little bit as it gets resold or whatever the case is. Kind of the control is maybe back in you know, into their hands, where maybe they can make a little bit more money and not give it up and stuff like that. So what's your take on NFTs?
I think the concept of it fully, like I've always thought that potential is there. Where I fought against people like 6 months ago, and I was like, hey, market proved me wrong on certain things. Or maybe I'll be proven right later, but who cares, right? Whether I'm right or wrong. But I think the concept of it, fully back it. I think where we're in this period is that NFTs aren't tech. And this is where people in crypto still don't understand. They think everything is tech and can be solved. NFTs are still talent-based.
Yes.
And talent will always win out. So right now, having low barriers to entry and people coming in, sure, that's good for certain marketplaces and things happening. But the talent is content. Content
is what drives it.
Yeah. Is what drives it. So I think we're going to have a weed out factor where the NFTs are going to go there. I also fundamentally believe that storage will be important, but NFT platforms, I don't know what role they'll play, because I think it'll just become they'll be like an e-commerce site. If I'm an artist, why not just do a plugin? The tech's not easy, and I'll just have it on my site. I'll have my own walled garden and have everybody buy from me. Why do I need to go to any of these platforms per se in the future? So I think in the future, those platforms are going to have to start to understand like what value add they give as well, or for all the users. So they got to start thinking about that. Yeah, so I think in that space, the concept of NFTs and where it can go to is going to be amazing. I think right now we just scratched the surface.
Totally, yeah, and you're right. It comes down to talent. I was talking about that too, reading up on it. Like, if you're not that good or popular, it may help, but ultimately, like, that token's not going to make your content better. It'll make it accessible, but obviously, you need to have a following, and people need to, value like you as an artist, musician, whatever the case is. So that brings up a good point, though. It's not tech. People are buying the NFTs for the actual product, or the actual, they see some value with the content creator, like, in general. So we'll see what happens.
With that, to add to that, I would debate people on this, because I came from this industry, and they're saying, oh, music needs to be disrupted because these record labels take all this money and do this, and all the blockchain will solve that. And I was like, I disagree. I say record labels might change, but they play a role. And they're like, I said, not all artists are crafted from the start that they can make themselves like The Weeknd did, right? A lot of them need to be molded. I was like, I don't know what era of music you grew up with, but I grew up in the 90s. So Bad Boy Records, Death Row, I'm a hip hop head from the beginning. I was like, yeah, sorry, Death Row, Dr. Dre, they molded artists and created them and made them better. Puff Daddy and these guys did. Like, it's not just, hey, we're just signing contracts. It's like, there's a management, brand, marketing, and coaching. It's just like, if you're a basketball player, how many people who are just raw talent make it all the way through without a good coach, going to a program like Kentucky or North Carolina? Like, sorry, that plays into it, right?
Yep. By the way, All Eyes on Me is one of my number one albums, man. BIG too, Wu-Tang too. No, that's kind of those are some interesting points. We kind of running up on time here, but we've chatted quite a lot about a few things with Bluzelle. Everybody tuning in. This is Pavel Bains with Bluzelle, CEO, co-founder, and we've chatted about the infrastructure, the stack, the applications, his recent updates in the last few months, the use cases that his clients are leveraging, how to use the tech. And I wanted really just to kind of showcase how people are using Bluzelle. They've been around for quite some time. You could catch a bunch of YouTube videos with his interviews. I kind of wanted to throw a fresh taste to kind of extract, the whole tech part of it, and really just apply it of how, your customer bases are using it, how it differs from what Web 2.0 is, and how the everyday person, is using their current technology, and kind of how you're similar, but just on the back end a little bit different, and kind of the advantages and disadvantages. So I hope I relayed that today. I hope you had a good time, Pavel. And like, where can people? Where can people learn more about getting updates about Bluzelle, and kind of insights and things that you have going on, the roadmap and all that?
Best thing would be go to bluzelle.com, scroll to the bottom, you'll see our main links. I would advise everybody going to Telegram and Discord, because that's where a lot of the people are there to help and communicate. Discord is really good because our team is actually faster on there, so they can answer direct questions. If people need customer support on staking or development, they can be on there. So those links are the best, just off our website.
Awesome. And the theme for Reimagine, 9.0 was Game of Chains, Battle for the Throne. He chatted about some of the other protocols in the space, but ultimately why they chose to develop on Cosmos, and plenty of reasons on why they did that. Flexibility, modules, being able to build and continue building either verticals or even within Cosmos for different solutions, products, and services. So that's been great. And I appreciate your time to kind of elaborate on all that stuff. And I just think it's important, going back to education, people that are coming into the space, people that have been in the space. I think it's important to recap, refresh, not only from our discussions, right, like a couple years ago of infrastructure and building, which you are infrastructure, but it's evolved now, and now you're providing other things, and it all makes sense. And we chatted about kind of, were we ahead of the game, behind in the game, weathering the storm, and you guys have done it all to be able to provide, add value and impact, not only Web 3.0 kind of devs, but down the road potentially you know, enterprises or small businesses or you know, individual developers and startups, whether that's centralized or decentralized. You're, as you mentioned, you're only as decentralized as your like centralized point of part of the stack. So I hope you had a good time, man. We appreciate it. And we hope to have you back, actually. If not you, somebody else on your team to give us another update in a few months and kind of take it from there.
For sure. Thanks, Adam. Totally appreciate this. This was fun.
Awesome. All right. Have a good one, man. Nice talking with you, and we'll see you again.